I'm Ragivah Mahdi, and thank you for joining me once again. This episode will be all about what does it mean to be empowered? What does it really mean to be empowered? You know, when you think of the word empowered, oftentimes we think that it's like someone could lay their hands on you and all of a sudden transfer the power that they have over to you. Wrong. No one could put their hands on you, or no one in any way can transfer their power over to you. What can be transferred is authority. So let's talk about authority first before we go into empowerment, because authority is different from power. And what I mean by that is this: the collective can transfer, let's say, duties and responsibilities over to you and back you up. And in that backing of you, you have authority. But power is something you have within yourself, and empowerment is a perspective. And what it's loaned into is that you have come from out of a state of disempowerment, and you are now transferred over to empowerment. Now, here's what I mean. The word empowerment wouldn't even exist if disempowerment didn't exist. You got that? The word empowerment wouldn't even exist. The idea of it wouldn't even exist if the idea of disempowerment didn't exist. So they come together. So every time we talk about empowerment, we also have to talk about disempowerment. But we're going to focus right now on empowerment because it is so essential that we do discuss it. And we understand that empowerment is not something that someone else can give to you. We can be granted authority by principalities, by other people, and we can act on their behalf. That is authority. Now, you have authority in your own life, right? You are the author of your life. And what I mean by that is that what you do, you have to pay for, and the way you pay for it is, there are consequences for everything we do. Just like, we are taught in science that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That simply means for everything you do, there's a consequence, good, bad, or ugly. But we tend to think of consequence as always a negative thing, but consequence is just a what is thing. It is what it is. So now, the more powerful you become, power is a thing of awareness. The more aware you become of your capabilities, of what your choices, of your talents, your gifts, your abilities, the more aware you become, then the more responsible you become for your power, and therefore the more powerful you become. So being empowered is essentially having the perspective that I already possess the talent, the gifts, the resources, the abilities to get done whatever it is I desire to in my life, and I'm consciously putting it into action, right? We're not talking about authority. Even though you do have authority in your own life and you act on that authority, but being empowered is having a perspective that you are aware of it. See, we wouldn't even talk about power the way we talk about it if it wasn't something to do with consciousness, right? Because everybody wants to feel powerful. We've surveyed thousands and thousands of people, and we have not met anybody yet who wanted to feel disempowered or powerless. And to be honest with you, the reason why I do what I do is because at 5 years old, I had an experience that would put me on this path. And that experience was my mom and dad had divorced when I was 5 years old, okay? And in a divorce, the marriage was pretty violent. And it was sort of a relief that they were divorcing. And of course, at 5 years old, you don't know what's going to happen. I just know that the violence that I saw and witnessed, it was rough to be around. It was rough to see my mother go through what she was going through. And in a lot of ways, rough to see my father go through what he was going through, because he had to be going through something in order to resort to that. So, oftentimes when we talk about this kind of stuff, we always talk about it one way. But the reality is, especially if it's your parents, there are two people involved that you love both. And so you have to be able to see or understand or try to understand, but not at 5 years old. At 5 years old, I was just completely reacting. I was helpless. In many ways, I felt like I was a coward, like I was supposed to do something, like I was supposed to protect my mother at 5. So that kind of grew in me, and I had to overcome that because, you know, as a male, you think that that's your job, and I couldn't do anything at 5. I was afraid myself, etc., etc. Anyway, so when they divorced, we lived with my mother, and she was a young mother, you know, struggling to find herself, struggling to be a parent. And me, my 2 brothers, and my older sister, we lived with her in one bedroom shotgun house. And, you know, it's a small house. You can see a shotgun house is a house that you can see. You stand in the front door, you can look all the way through, and you can see through the back door. That's what they call a shotgun. So if you shoot a shotgun, it'll go straight through the house, right? Louisiana, right? So there were neighbors who, you know, were paying attention to, you know, what was going on with us. And there was a situation where my youngest brother his diaper had not been changed in a few days. And the sheriff department was called, and they picked us up, took us away from our mother. She was declared an unfit mother based upon what they found, okay? So at 5, I'm separated from my mother. My dad is not there. And then along comes this court date. And the court date is going to be to determine whose custody we're going to be put into. And so on that day, I remember sitting on the front row of the bench in the courtroom, and my uncle, who was like 4 years older than me, sitting next to me. He was 9, I was 5. And it was my grandmother, my daddy's mother, who was there. And I remember the judge saying that I've made a decision, and the decision is, I think it is in the best interest of these boys to put them in the custody of their father. And, you know, in that moment, it was sort of a relief, but, a fear, because I, saw the way my father had treated my mother. You know, you don't understand the adult situations behind stuff. But I was sort of like afraid. But then when the judge said that, my dad stood up and walked out of the courtroom. My heart dropped. Oh my God. You talk about fear. My heart dropped, full of uncertainty. I felt utterly powerless. And in that feeling of utter powerlessness, it was so excruciatingly painful that at 5 years old, I made a promise to myself that I would never experience that again. And that is what catapulted me on the journey that I've been on all my life. So for 50 some odd years, I've been on helping people feel and get in touch with their power. That's my job. Powering up with Ragivah Mahdi has been my handle for a while, because I've been just driven, inspired to not only not want to experience feeling utterly powerless again, but not wanting anyone else to experience feeling utterly powerless again. And so everything that I've created has been about giving you a view, a different perspective of your power, so that you can embrace your power wholeheartedly and not leave any part of your power, because your power is really you. So let's go back to empowerment. So empowerment is you recognizing that who you are is the secret to your sauce. You being empowered is you recognizing that who you are, your authentic self, is the secret to your sauce. And every time you cut the sauce, you cut the power, you cut the intensity, the potency of your power. You are the power. You. And think of empowerment as you are embracing you, you are loving you, you are seeing, you have caught up with yourself. And then keep catching up with yourself, you catch up with your power, and then you consciously begin to start exercising it in a manner that fits what you desire to manifest into the world. When you can get you to do what you want to do, you are operating fully in your power. This is what empowerment is to me. Peace. Ragivah Mahdi, Soul Focus Group.